First of all, on the why the US, I really looked into investing. I looked at the globe as a portfolio of opportunities. Where would it make sense? And I knew that I only want to invest in a country, and Israelis like to invest in different places. But some of them, for example, are Kiev. People invest in Ukraine, which is crazy, and we see why. And some people invest in Europe, which doesn't have the right legal structure for an investor to be able to protect his capital, or to be able to be certain that he will be able to defend his rights. And in the US, I felt, and from the research we have done, is that there is a good legal system, there is a fair system, there's probably no one will knock on your door and tell you, hey, your real estate is mine. That this was important, and it's not obvious when you invest
And
in some.
to be clear, you're saying this happens in other markets. You know, someone can
Yeah,
knock on your door and just say, "This real estate you think
yeah,
you bought, you think you own, you don't own. It's mine."
yes, I know. I had a very close friend who went to do business in Ukraine, and he researched after 2014, the first time that Russia invaded Ukraine, and there was a crisis, and he researched a huge industrial facility that he wanted to buy. And as he landed, he went to the first night to the hotel. He got a knock on the door. There were two people with suits and a bottle of wine that came to him to tell him, "Hey, partner, how are you? We are going to celebrate the partnership." Next morning he was on the way back. He didn't like the celebration of partnership, but the idea is that we wanted a market and a governmental structure where you can do business and be confident that your rights are indeed your rights and you can enforce them. So that was a key point. And then besides that, I had a great belief in the economy and the power of the United States as an empire and as a country that will keep existing and leading the world in the next 50, 100 years, which you can see that unstable government can really collapse your value of investment or your economy or anything like that. And I felt like from all the bets you can make, that probably the United States are the best bet you have out there.
I think that's a really important point because, for those US investors, sometimes you can take things like that for granted and not recognize that, we are operating as a global economy right now. And there are some things that we have with protections and policies with our real estate that makes it very attractive for foreign investors to come in and say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable investing in my backyard. Let me invest here. And even for those folks who are in the United States, you might be in a city or a state where the legislation isn't advantageous to you. So instead of investing in your backyard, you may look at other markets where it's a little more business friendly, cash flow is a little bit better, there's more upside. So as you looked at the country, obviously it's one thing to decide to invest in the US. How did you decide which markets in particular you were going to focus on?
So I've been looking into markets where I can, if I'm working with tenants, and I've been saying that before and I got in troubles before, but I've been looking into markets where you can own properties and you can really be the owner of the property. So if someone doesn't pay rent ever, you can really regain ownership over the property. So I prefer those kind of markets on the one aspect of it. Second of all, business friendly markets that you can really do business with, and the city or the state doesn't look at you as the enemy and doesn't try to tax you to death, and that was a perspective. And eventually, when we end up choosing Cincinnati as the starting point, we had a cooperation. We had a firm that we were introduced to that they did real estate in Columbus, in Cleveland, and in New York. And they felt like the Columbus market was doing phenomenal, and it still does. And they felt like that Cincinnati as the secondary market to Columbus will probably do the same rise up. It was around 2017 when we started talking about it. And they were right. And they gave us this advice. And it was not just advice. It was if you go there and you find properties of market and you're gonna do all the dirty work and you're gonna renovate them and you're gonna manage them and you're gonna chase the profits and manage our investment, then we're gonna invest with you. And if we're gonna invest with you, you don't really need more investors. They really believed in their capital ability to finance us. And we started working this way as with kind of a perfect solution for the equity piece. But we fairly quickly we realized that it's not very perfect when you're relying on one source of capital, and that in order to be really a company and independent and strong, you need to be with the diversity of sources of people that will believe in you and invest with you. You can't give too much power to one person over your destiny.
I think that's a great insight, right? It's great starting out that you have a capital partner who is willing to fund your deals, but typically that's going to come with some strings attached. They're going to want to have some input and some insight on how things happen and what deals move forward, how the decision making process works. And as you gain more, success and power and experience, you probably want a little bit more autonomy to do the deals in the way you see fit. So I can understand why there might be a need to expand beyond that. I just want to replay a couple of things I thought were really important that you talked about. When you looked at the market, first of all, you said, where's that growth opportunity? You looked at Columbus, you had a partner who, understood that market, looked at Cleveland, New York, other markets, and they said, hey, Cincinnati is well positioned for growth here. And if you're going to be boots on the ground and looking for these opportunities, this could be a great market for you to find deals. And for those that don't recall, back around 2017, in particular, there's still some pretty good cash flow opportunities in Cincinnati, not just Cincinnati, but in multiple markets. But Cincinnati in particular, around that time, I believe it was ranked the number one market for yield. So if you were looking for cash flow, that market had it. And unlike some of the other markets in, the top five, I think it was the only one that was growing. Other markets at the time were like Detroit and I think St. Louis and markets like that. But Cincinnati was growing. And that's obviously what attracted us to the market as well, starting out. So great way to start. And then you use your partnerships, your capital partners to really expand and grow. How did you manage that? Because I think when people think of scaling the business, and if they've got almost a line of credit, right, where you have a capital partner who's going to write the checks, it's easy to say, great, let's just go out shopping for properties. But obviously, you've got to manage that growth as well. So tell me about maybe some of the challenges you faced in managing that growth and where you're at today.
Every part of it is painful. The growth. There's nothing about it goes smooth or simple or easy. If something goes smooth, you need to really watch out. And we had problems in every aspect of it. In the closing piece of it, that was complicated, and eventually to transition to work with lenders that need to believe in you because you don't have a track record to show, and it doesn't make sense to lend money to you, and you need to make the impossible or the not rational make sense to them to convince them to invest. And you need to focus on the renovation piece. The renovation piece is a very, very hard learning curve. People think that it's much simpler than it really is. And renovating properties, it takes so much time to figure out how to do and how to work with third-party contractors and how to manage them and how to pay them and how to monitor their progress and how to create a structure where they can negotiate with you and they don't just take advantage of you. And we lost 2018 until the beginning of 2019, like $1.5 million on renovations, on going over budget. We told investors from day one that we're not willing to charge them extra if the renovation doesn't go right. So if I tell you as my investor that you need to invest with me and the piece of the renovation is $60,000, just a number for example, that's what you're going to pay, and you're going to get a finished product, regardless of my result. It could be that it's going to take me a little more time. I'm trying to be conservative, but I could be wrong. But the price is the price. You're not going to pay for my professional mistakes. And that means I'm going to pay for them. And that means it's going to hurt. And that means I'm going to learn from it, hopefully. And, uh, and that's what we did. We done that over and over again. We went in like 40 renovations over budget because of mismanagement of the contractors. And it's not that we didn't try. It's not that we weren't on site. It's not that we didn't supervise their job and weren't present. It's just that we didn't build the right systems. We didn't provide the right terms, and it takes time to figure out what those are and how to motivate contractors and how to make them believe that they are replaceable and not to give them too much power, and how to work together, how to not give deposits day one for the beginning of the job, how to some rules that you develop over time that make that possible.
Stas, let's dig into that a little bit more because one, I love
Yeah.
there's a beautiful quote you just said. You said, my investors are not going to pay for my professional mistakes. And I think that's a really keen insight, both in kind of who you are, the way you operate, but also that mentality and the values. There's another quote you didn't say that it struck with me, and it says, values aren't values until they cost you money. So that's one of those things that really underlines that principle. And I think it's a really important way to think, especially when you're young in your company, you're trying to grow and scale. You also talked about the hardships of learning how to manage contractors, which can be tricky. I mean, you're probably used to, bringing that military background. You have a conversation, you tell somebody to do something, or there's a conversation, you expect them to do that. And I come from corporate America, where it's a very similar thing. We have a conversation, we say, hey, drywall is going to be up on Tuesday. I fully expect drywall to be up on Tuesday, or somebody better call me, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday and explain to me why drywall is not going to be up on Tuesday. And if that doesn't happen, it can be very challenging and difficult. So I understand some of the challenges and complexities there that you've experienced. And anyone, if you're not used to managing, workforce type of employees, this could be a bit of a shock. If you're coming into this and you think everybody's on the same page, and then you walk away and you realize, oh no, they're not doing what we expected them to do. So I want you to dig in more on how you learn to manage contractors to ensure that they are operating with your best interest in mind and completing these jobs on budget and on time.
Okay, so it's a long philosophy. I'll try to make it short and with a couple of points that people can take away from it. First, I broke apart the part of the work that needs to be done, the labor piece and the materials piece. We decided to control the materials aspect completely. My contractors do not buy materials. It used to be that I used to do it like that, and by the way, 90% of real estate companies still do it this way. They interview a contractor for a job, or they get 3 quotes. Then they choose the one that makes sense to them or they believe in. And then this contractor tells you, it's going to cost you $100,000. I can bring the materials as well. With the materials, it's going to be 200,000. You want me to bring the materials? People tell him yes. Or people negotiate a little bit and tell him yes. Once they say yes, they create an immediate incentive for him to bring the shittiest materials he could possibly bring, to save as much as he can on materials. Second of all, they slow him down, because usually a contractor is not a good planner and purchaser of materials. He's just going to go to Home Depot 4 days a week for 4 hours each time with 3 employees at the same time. And he's going to try to do that. So that's going to extend the length of the project, because he's going to spend a lot of time in Home Depot, and he's not working with checklists and organized lists of materials that he needs to even finish a bathroom. So he starts doing the bathroom, they start working on it, they realize they don't have the right faucet, they need to go back, they come back, they keep working, they realize they have another piece missing, they all go back. And then this way you come to the site is empty, and everyone is on Home Depot. So first of all, they're buying it super expensive. They're trying to save money by buying bad materials. They extend the project because they're not on site and they're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is working on progressing the project. And you don't even have a control over the work and what has been done, because you can look, they can report to you, but if you supply the materials, you know what was installed. If you don't, that gives you another control aspect, basically. So that is another piece of it. And when they start going too long, when a contractor quotes you 100,000 and it's been 3 months that he's working and now he didn't finish, he begins to lose money. There's no other scenario. And once he begins to lose money, he is either going to do change orders and try to go over budget with you, or is going to try to play games with you, and not because he's a bad person, because he is bleeding, financially, and he cannot pay his people, and he needs to find creative solutions. So we took the materials piece aside. Then eventually we took the piece that is the part of the renovation that is planning to us. So we are estimating, we are doing the estimate of the projects and the plans of execution of the project. We are providing the materials. Now we just need a contractor to do the work. So that made more sense as a system.
So you basically are developing a full scope, right? You're developing the scope of work for the project. You're taking on the materials. So you're identifying what pieces are needed. And then you're just having a contractor come in and say, okay, to do this project with these materials, it's going to take me X amount of time and cost X amount of dollars.
And even that piece, we broke to separate pieces, because we understand that an expectation from a contractor to be a Superman, to know everything about construction is not a realistic expectation. He's usually a carpenter that took a couple of friends and now he wants to be a contractor. And now you expect him to understand in purchasing materials, HVAC, electric, plumbing, roofing, and all of those separate areas are professional areas that he needs to be able to pull permits, to work with the city, to do things the right way. And it's not working. So then when you're surprised why things are going bad, this is why. So we broke this to pieces, and we started working with subs that are professional subs for the specific area. And it takes much more time to prepare for a renovation, but then once you execute it the right way. So the estimation time became long, the planning time became long, but the execution became much easier and much more accurate. And I would say the last piece for it is to employ people in-house that can do all of those things. And you cannot employ everyone if you're doing, at our peak, we did 25 projects at the same time. You cannot employ everyone. But what you should do is employ some people that can replace every contractor you work with. And then if the contractor knows that if he plays games with me tonight, I can replace him by tomorrow morning, and my people can come to site and continue the job without him, this is the piece. Because what's the worst case scenario for you is to lose a contractor in the middle of a project, because the next one that will step into his shoes will own you, will be in a position of power and negotiation. And not only because he wants to take advantage, but just also because he doesn't know what really the previous contractor that failed have done, what things he doesn't know about the project. He cannot look into the walls. He doesn't know if what was done is bad and now he needs to redo things again. So he's going to try to take safety measures. And if the project was planned to be 100,000, now you spent already 70, and now this guy wants 120,000 to complete the project. And now go figure how you get out of it. So,
oh man, listen, for those who are watching us, you can see the laughter coming across my face, and it's just because I fully identify with what you're saying. I mean, we did a handful of flip projects and they did not turn out as well. And it's really for the things you said. Once you get a contractor and things don't work out, the next contractor is absolutely going to come in and they'll help you, but it's going to cost them. They don't want any accountability for what the previous guy did. So they're going to need to either open up walls, but they're not going to just start and finish the project from wherever it left off. They're going to have questions. The budget's going to increase, and you're going to have those challenges. So some lessons that you shared to help us avoid that. One, make sure you really take control of the process when it comes to the scope of work. Understand what the materials are, what the process is, and manage that process. Two, you may not be able to do this on your first deal, but really start to understand who those subs are, who are the subcontractors. So that way you can get direct quotes for plumbing, for electric, for roofing, for all the other elements. And you're not just solely relying on this general contractor to bring his entire crew for you to work with. And then three, make sure that you own control and that you can replace that contractor if things do go awry. If they start asking for more money, or they can't be on the job, you want to make sure you have some backup plans built in so that they know, hey, if I don't deliver on this, I may not even have a chance to finish out this project. So you can definitely build it out that way to take more control. And one of the themes that keeps coming up in this conversation is how to take control over your investments, right? Starting with, doing this from afar when you were in Israel, working with your capital stack partners and how to gain more control from that standpoint. But then on the construction side, making sure that you can take control over the renovation budget and that overall process as well. Just to close out that point, when we talk about controlling the construction and being able to replace a contractor, one thing that is a concern for folks who've been down this road is you may get a lien on your property from a general contractor. How do you navigate that if you have to let a contractor go and they go ahead and put a lien on the property?
So first of all, in my practice, I try in situations like that to avoid litigation. And in life as a philosophy, I always try to avoid conflicts over small amounts of money, and not to underestimate the amounts of money. But some people make life wars over $2,000, and they're focusing on it, and they're hating on people, and they don't let it go, and they don't sleep at night. And I'm trying not to be like that. If I need to finish a relationship and to pay someone additional 3,000, and he's gonna get this money out of me, even if it's big money for me at the time, but then I'm gonna avoid the war, I'm gonna try to do that. And on the other side, I'll make him sign a lien waiver or something like that. But what I would say is try not to avoid those red flags. And when red flags come up, if you need to pay a little bit to finish the relationship without getting this lien or the legal situation, do that. But believe in your gut and in your red flags. If you have red flags, don't go into the route of I'll just pay him additional $15,000. He's gonna finish the project. To face the reality now and to replace him is gonna be much more expensive. So I will just keep following the bad path, because that's going to be more expensive. I prefer not to send good money after bad money and to finish the relationship and to pay a little bit, rather than, but some people, and so many people in real estate and in investments in general, they make this mistake of not facing bad reality on time, not facing they're not ready to hear bad news. You can see that on a global scale, it happens to leaders. You can see that with Putin, that was projecting that is going to make a war for 3 months. Everyone who listened to the guy understand he's going for a war, but still people try to listen for the good signs, for the good news, for the hope. They're trying to hold to the hope. He wants diplomacy, he wants that. No, he wants war. That's what he wants. And this, sometimes in business, it's the same way. You can see red flags, trust it, trust your gut. It's a good business tool, and if you feel that the relationship is going south, stop it now, face the reality and start facing it today, because just holding on the hope is going to be more expensive, and you're going to have to face the reality. It's just going to be, you're going to lose more time and more money until you do that.
Yeah, and don't operate out of fear, right? You talked about people not wanting to cut this string because, well, they know a new contractor is going to come in and cost them more money, and maybe this guy can just get through. But hope is very rarely a good strategy. So, you are better off cutting the ties there, figuring out how much it's going to take to bring in a new contractor or whatever it's going to take to get the project done, as opposed to just hoping you can get to the finish line. I just think that's a brilliant point, and one that we've seen as well with many of the folks that we've talked to and experiences that we've seen as well. I really want to go back to one thing. We talked about your markets and expanding, and I know that you were going to Houston. You've got 1,100 units that you're looking to close in the Houston market. What was it about Houston that attracted you to come over there?
So a couple of things. First of all, I feel like there is a historical shift, historical growth of the southern markets. There's a huge immigration stream from outside of the country and from internally, from some areas that are colder with some bad policies to areas that are more tax friendly and that are warmer and nicer and growing. And a lot of companies are transitioning to Florida and to Houston and to Texas and to Arizona. And partially, I feel like, so I felt like Florida is too late. I felt like Florida, we analyzed Florida and Texas because the migration there is crazy. Companies are moving there, people are moving there. Movers don't have movers to send there. We have an investor that has a moving company that says that he's being called every day by 10 families that want to move to Texas. And he tells them, listen, I'm booked a year in advance. And they tell him, you tell us a price, we're going to pay it, you're going to move us. It's not a discussion. Tell us the price tag and you're going to find time. And that's historical shift towards the south. And in this shift, as I told you about Cincinnati and Columbus with the same mindset, I feel like Houston is a secondary market to Austin, Texas, where in Austin prices are already pretty high, and it's still a good long-term play in my ability to see the market, in my vision, but the prices are already too high to buy for returns. So you need institutional money to invest there. You need, Florida is the same way, it's super high, and a deal that I looked at, it didn't make sense to me at 25 million, was bought a month later at 28. And things that we were looking at, they completely lost. The return wise makes sense. I still feel like Florida is also a good long-term play, but Houston is, you can still get both. You can get returns on your investment on the short term, and you can see the growth potential for the future, because as Austin keeps booming and companies keep moving to Austin, people that cannot afford Austin will move to Houston, and Houston will keep growing. And another piece of it for me as a company, as I told you, in the Midwest, I'm already in 6 sub-markets. In Houston, I can grow as a company now for 3-4 years and keep buying multifamilies on a scalable trajectory and still do that, because there's more than 4,000 multifamilies over 200 units. There's 10,000 multifamilies over 100 units. The market is very large. So I can pick and choose my picks, and I can not choose to buy every deal. While in Cincinnati, at my size, it's already hard to find the deals that would make sense. And if I get one, it's harder for me to pass if I don't like the deal, if I don't like the negotiation. So it's putting me in a more limited position. While for a small investor, it could still be very, very interesting, and he has a lot more choices because he's choosing from smaller properties.
I really appreciate you breaking that down. Lots of insights there. First and foremost, you talked about the balance between cash flow and appreciation. Starting out in the Midwest, obviously we're well known for the cash flow opportunities there. And as you start to look around, it's like, okay, where else can I still get the cash flow, but also get some appreciation? And Houston being a market that offers both, one of the reasons you decided to go there. The other is simply for scale, right? I mean, as you talked about, there's only so many properties that are 200 plus units in the Midwest. You're across 6 markets already. Houston being the 4th largest or 3rd largest city in the country, depending on when you listen to this, there's going to be more properties available, and you've got more communities there that are 200 plus units. So you have a bigger pond to fish in, if you will. So it's easier for you to scale in that market as opposed to bouncing around, 5 or 6 Midwest markets. So that makes a lot of sense as well for you to move down there and to grow your portfolio. For anybody who's listening, who is interested in learning more about you and some of the things that you're doing, your website is vnbinvest.com. That's V as in Victor, N as in Nancy, B as in boy, invest.com. I implore you to check out Stas and his team there. Right now, we are going to move on to our round of insights. All right, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
So a failure, we invested, myself and friends and family invested in a property in Atlanta, Georgia, in an office building when I was still in Israel. And that was the last piece that broke us before we understood we need to move in and be locals to do real estate. And it was based on a story that was told by other people. Everything in the internet that we learned about the property made sense. We bought a vacant office building, 4 offices, and plan to renovate it and then plan to lease it up. And the lease up didn't go through, and like we didn't have tenants, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, no tenants. No one is asking about the property, even though the area is good, the rent is good, price per square foot makes sense, everything makes sense. High demand for offices, no one is knocking on this door. And we started digging into it, and then we realized that there is, in commercial real estate, there is an aspect of reputation. Sometimes a building has bad reputation. Sometimes everyone knows this one street of businesses where there's this one business that every 6 months there's going to be a new businessman that's going to take place, and then he's going to fail. And it doesn't matter how talented he is. It could be Warren Buffett, and this specific investment will go bad. And this was the reputation of this building, and we couldn't know this part of it. We knew and analyze everything else about the area, and this was a breaking point. And we gathered those investors together, and we experienced a crisis. We gathered those investors, and we told them that we owe them this money personally, to return them the money for the investment, because it's not that they took a business risk and the business risk didn't work out. They took a personal risk in trusting us, and we could not prevent this fail, and therefore it's not fair for them to lose money on this investment. So we told them it might take us a year or two to get you the money back, but we're gonna get you the money back. So this way, when we got on the plane to move here, we knew that we owed them $900,000 to return them for a bad investment. And it took us 2 years. We paid them back, and those people, since they invest with us, they became our investors, and they became people of reference and people who will give us good testimonials for first investors that will believe in us and trust us, and because they knew that we took responsibility and we learned from the mistake and we grew from it. So it became from a failure to a success.
That's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that really illustrates, what we talk about learning from your mistakes and finding a way to make it right. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Again, what do you mean?
A digital or mobile resource, like an app or anything you use to communicate with your team or to help you analyze deals, anything like that.
We're working with CoStar. We're working on a lot of internet platforms. We have basically a software for every piece of the business. We have, in the management company, we work with Raisman. It's a property management resource. Is that the question, or am I missing it?
Yep. No, I think that's great. CoStar is a great answer there. All right. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
I think The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
All right. The Fountainhead. Good one there. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I think working out. I'm doing a lot of jiu-jitsu or being in shape. I think it's important for any entrepreneur, for any person, if you ask me. I think that it's good to keep you sharp, to keep your mind right, to keep yourself healthy, and to not. I think that it even manages your stress levels for situations that could put you in stress, because your blood flow is better, everything is better.
All right. And we are both in Cincinnati, so I'm really interested to hear your take here. But give me the best place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, easy. It's called the Zula Bar and Restaurant in OTR.
All right, Zula. I've been there, but we have to check that out again.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen, you've given us a lot of great information, Stas. I appreciate you sharing your journey being in the Israeli army, starting to invest in U.S. real estate from afar, having those hardships, struggling investing from afar, which, a lot of times we don't get to hear those stories, but having those challenges to the point where you end up moving to the U.S. so you can really be more boots on the ground, find out what you're actually investing in, and paying back those investors who had believed in you from the jump. Now you've got 2,500 units under management with another 1,100 or so in the pipeline, and just really all the tips you gave us on construction management, managing those property managers and particularly those general contractors so you can take more control of the deal. Again, for anybody who wants to learn more about you or your firm, they can check out your website at vnbinvest.com. Stas, thank you again for coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying connected with you and staying in touch.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.